Hi, welcome to White Hat versus Black Hat SEO show. My name is Josh Bachynski, and today I am blessed to have with me a whole host of guests. First off, of course, I have my co-host, Black Hat SEO, Clint Butler. Say hi, Clint.
Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Oh, I didn't mute. John, this time I didn't mute it. We should have like a drinking game. If I forget to mute it, then I have to take a shot of something or something. And we have also with us, Derek is sitting in with us. He's going to ask some questions later on. And we're also blessed today to have our special guest host, Kyle Roof. Say hi, Kyle.
Hey, how we doing?
So Kyle's in Milan right now. He's a world traveler.
Lucky.
He's presenting at a conference in Slovenia. And tell us how you're enjoying Milan. What is Milan like?
These are the Milan sites right here, as you can see with my Airbnb.
Ooh, they have cupboards.
Yeah, nice cheap ones. But yeah, no, so far so good. Interestingly, if you travel Europe a bit, I've only been in Milan for a day and only honestly for a few hours, but it strikes me like it's a lot like Berlin. So if you've been to Berlin, it's really interesting. It has the same kind of vibe and feel. Maybe the food's a little better, but
I bet it is. Do you speak Italian? Do you find the language barrier an issue?
I speak no Italian. I speak enough German to get him around in a restaurant. I speak a lot of Korean. That's not useful around here.
Nope, none of those apply.
But no Italian. But so far, with anything, it's just you look at the menu and I'll take one of these and a beer this size. It's all good.
Right. Okay, so today we're very excited to have Kyle on. Kyle has a really new, super cool Onpage SEO tool that he just released. It's in beta right now, and Kyle's going to walk us through that and show us some results. I've already got some results here to look at. And Kyle, if you want to show us some different results, it's totally up to you. We can look at my results, your results, however you want to proceed with that. But we're going to get to that in a second. If you've never seen the show before, the White Hat versus Black Hat SEO show is where we discuss white hat techniques, black hat techniques, gray hat techniques. We are the best SEO show on YouTube. We're probably the only SEO show on YouTube, but we're still the best one.
That was my first thought. I was like, are there others?
Are there any others? I think Amon Johns and Bill Slosky every now and then do a show, and I think David Harry and Terry and those guys in Toronto, I think they do a show. But I'm going to put on record that we're better than them, both in terms of being SEOs and in terms of our show. And this is the reason why, is because I have the best guests with the best tools, and they have the best evidence. We actually do SEO experiments. We actually do SEO experiments to find out what is truly a ranking factor and what is not. Everyone else is just guessing based on their experience. Well, we've got experience too, plus experiments. So if they ever want to come on my show, I'm continuously inviting them to debate us, and they never show up. So I'm going to call them cowards. But if they ever want to come on the show and test their theory, whether they're better than us, they can do that. Until such time, I will happily proclaim that we are better. I will safely and happily proclaim that we are better because they don't come here to defend themselves. So that's the show. Today we have a really cool tool. So first off, though, the first segment we'll get into is what's new in SEO. That's always the first segment we start out with. But to tell you the truth, there's not really a lot new in SEO. If you've seen a fluctuation in your rankings lately, Barry Schwartz from SE Roundtable, good old Barry, he did report that there's been a shakeup in the rankings lately. I did see this effect on my test servers. The pages fluctuated one or two spots up or down. Kyle, did you see any fluctuations in your test servers as well?
On a handful. It wasn't anything super huge, but you see that, which is actually kind of fun. Because I marinate test pages. I'll create test pages and let them sit, because sometimes it takes a while for them to index. But then you can see the whole test environment reshuffle, and then you know that there's been an algo update.
Yes, a disturbance in the force, right? So
exactly,
it's like we have Richter scales, and we can see the little shaking there. And so it's quite interesting whenever Barry says that. He says there's been a shakeup in the rankings, and sometimes we never see it on our test servers. It's just placid. Or sometimes we see the shake on our test servers, and then we know, okay, well, it must have been something content related or something indexing related or something crawling related, because that's the only, at least for my test servers, that's pretty much the only thing I have going on right now. All my traffic tests, they stay solid. All my linking tests, they stay more or less solid. So I know they didn't adjust the traffic or the user metric quality score and or the linking algorithms. It was some kind of content related. Maybe they tweaked keyword density slightly. You never know what they could do. They could tweak anything they want.
I was going to pipe in and can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
What I noticed was a bunch of stuff happening on Search Console.
Hmm.
Just whole errors on client sites. Just seem to amplify over the past week or two. So I don't know if there's something going on there where they are doing a bunch of quality checks. There was specific things like 404s that were detected. All of a sudden, they were little things like that.
Okay, so yeah, so you're seeing a bunch of indexing and crawling kind of adjustments on Search Console.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible, and that would kind of explain why we see fluctuations on our test SERPs, because I have 4 pages that are running. If this one gets removed because it didn't like it was de-indexed or crawled or moved some threshold, then the ranking of all these pages are going to adjust as well, and that's what we see. So, and that would make sense on my test servers, because my test servers, for the most part, have nothing else going on. They don't rank for anything else. They have no traffic going on. So that's entirely possible. So it's a plausible hypothesis.
Yeah, when they started releasing the new Search Console, a lot of those error messages started coming up crazy, and they're coming in spurts, like Derek said. Like you get a whole bunch of them. You're like, what the hell? There's nothing wrong, and then they'll go away, and then you get a whole bunch more, and that just started happening too. So, I could see that maybe they're tying those into a little bit better, and Search Console is getting more reactive to the stuff that they're doing in the algorithm. That would be pretty cool, actually, to make that tool actually more useful, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I agree. That would be cool. Okay, so Liz says in the chat that she noticed that pages don't get indexed right away when using Search Console. Must be a recent change. Yeah, they did talk about that recently. That they have adjusted. John Mueller was talking about this. He was asked, and I was listening to his Hangouts recently. They have adjusted how because people were abusing the Google URL submit in the search.
No,
or not abusing, using it heavily, and maybe for reasons they wouldn't want. That they've adjusted the amount you could submit through the URL, but I didn't notice any difference in the amount you could submit through Search Console. Kyle, Clint, did you notice any difference in the Search Console indexing feature?
From what I heard, and this is just real secondhand, that they limited it something like 500.
Yeah.
You can do submitting 500 a day to beat the tools. But something I did notice is that I've launched a lot of pages in the last week, and it's taken what might take less than a day, has taken 3, 4, 5 days for pages to index and show, and some pages still haven't. So I'm definitely seeing, and I'm not at that 500 threshold by any close mark, but I'm seeing that pages, at least in the last week, it has seemed that things are taking a little bit longer to index.
Okay, so that's interesting. So that means that
it's actually 500 a month, and if you do the math, it's
excuse me,
15 a day. Yeah,
I'm still not there though.
Per Google account. So.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's like 15 a day or whatever it is. 16 a day.
Yeah.
It's still interesting that it's taking what used to index immediately and be crawled immediately. I haven't seen any differences. My test pages on my server are the spammiest crap pages, thin content you can imagine, because they're complete gibberish. I don't know why Google would ever want to rank them, quite frankly. I should just ignore them entirely. Luckily, they don't, so I can have a test environment. It's same with yourself, Kyle, and anyone else running tests. But whenever I submit it to Google, they index it and crawl it like within minutes. So
I'm still not having problems because I'm doing my tier 1s and stuff too. It might be, and this is pure guessing too. It just could be just based on the quality of the domain and the quality of your account. So if you have a really good established Google account, like mine or you, Kyle's, or yours, Josh, you have a better indexing rate than, say, the fake one that I made, or the hundreds of fake ones I made to leverage that tool. So that could be possible. To me, that would be a good way to slow it, to reduce spam, is to slow that down so it takes a week to index versus doing it instantly to reduce the spam that goes to it. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's Google's task, and they're the thing that they want to do there. So that's definitely what they want to do, is reduce the amount of spam that can get shoved in there. So
Yeah.
So, but it's still usable for us. So we'll have to watch that problem. So everyone watching the Hangout, everyone watching my show, watch that problem. Tell me in the chat and tell me in the comments how things are indexing for you if you see any problems there. Do you guys have any other new stuff you want to talk about before we move on to Kyle's new big tool?
New big tool.
Little tool.
It's big. It's enormous. I've seen it.
It knows what it's doing, but we can't see it.
Okay. Well, if there's no new business you guys want to talk about, so let's move right on. So, Kyle, I'm going to turn things over to you in a couple seconds. You developed this really new cool tool, and I think it's based on your experiments you've been doing and your course on Onpage SEO. And so why don't you, if you want to talk about it a bit, share your screen, or I've got some results up here I can share as well. It's up to you.
Sure, I'll share just so people can see what it looks like. And then I've got an output file, but if you want to talk about, if you run one, we actually did an update today, so, but, you know, whatever. They're all about the same. But I'll share my screen real quick.
Awesome.
All right. Can you see my screen?
We sure can.
Okay, so this is the site. It's hvseo.co, which is my agency site, so please don't be a dick and spam me. But page optimizer beta exact matches. So, and by the way, just so people are clear, this is free to use. It's in beta. I think at some point we're going to charge, but we're talking more about server maintenance. I think we're going to charge $1 is what I think we're going to charge. But totally free to use right now. When we do switch over to any kind of paid thing, if you're a beta, we're going to give you a bunch of credits. So hop in now and enjoy. But the concept is, and you can read about whatever you want to read about, but you put in your target keyword. So in this example, dog, lover, you put in your target URL. This is the page that you're trying to rank. And then underneath you put in your competitors. And let me just remove this so you can see. So it marks it for you. So this is the page you're trying to optimize. These are your competitors. Right now you can put in up to 10 competitors. You then put in your email and you hit send request. Tool takes about 30 seconds to run, maybe up to a minute, and then you're going to receive an email with the output file is the concept. Some problems that people have run into, you must put in HTTP or HTTPS. That's just kind of the nature of how the scripts run. If you don't put that in, it's not going to run. And then you have to put in a real URL. So you can do something dynamic like this. That's completely fine. But I've seen where some people like for example, grabbing the URL, like the abbreviated URL that you might see in SERPs, rather than going to the page and grabbing the actual URL, go to the page and grab the actual URL.
Right.
So get that one and make sure you're using the HTTP or HTTPS, and then the tool should run fine. And like I said, it only takes about 30 seconds for the output file to hit. And then you're good to go, and you can run it as many times as you like. Obviously, it's one at a time, and you put in your email every time, of course, but that's fine. But we actually have several people that are running this a couple hundred times a day. So go nuts. Have a great time with it. You get an email, like I said, about 30 seconds up to a minute, and this is the dog lovers one, but this is the output file you get. Josh, if you want to stay with this one, that's fine with me. If you want to, you've got some specific things on another output file, happy to look at that as well.
Yeah, my output file looks pretty cool. It's a real world example. I'll share that one too.
Yeah, by the way, this is completely fake. Barkpost.com is not a client. I'm not optimizing. It was just just grabbing.
I've got a good real world example here.
Sure, I'll stop sharing.
You guys see it's for the keyword table pads.
Cool. So let's run through like what you see on that one.
Sure. So this was very interesting. So I just kind of walk us through. You've got the main URL. You've got meta title, H1s, H2, H4s, image alt, anchor text, paragraph text, bold, italic, and then H2 to H3. Everything else is self-explanatory. I just didn't understand what this meant.
Sure.
Get to that in a second. But let's just walk through the top. So basically, you're telling people what the target minimum is of your competitors, the target maximum is, and then compared to what you got, and then whether or not you should improve your variations of keywords. So
that's right. So starting at the very top in row 1, so it lists your keywords, so table pads, and it's a good thing to mention because you wrote that plural. It's going to look for the plural version. So if you've got the singular version in terms of exact match, it's not going to count that and score it. that would actually probably be, you can see that actually turns into your variation table pad. But so just to first and foremost, however you write in on the exact match, that's exactly how it's going to be checked for on the exact match side.
Good.
There's your target URL. Those are your variations. The variations, this was Ted Kubaitis' breakthrough on Google showing you the variations by the bolded terms that are in the SERPs. So this is what this is pulling out are the bolded terms. I'm not exactly 100% sure where Ted, I keep wanting to say Clint, where Ted gets his variations from, but I know that I'm pulling directly from those bolded terms. I think if you did a little side-by-side comparison, I've been doing some of that. I've noticed some differences, so I'm trying to sort those out. But
well, Ted's is pulling from all of the top 100 results, so that's why he gets.
No, we're pulling from the top 100 too, which is interesting. So I'm trying to figure out where the difference is.
Ted, he didn't give you all the tips.
No, he didn't. But so those are the variations, and so that's what's pulling out is those are bolded terms in the SERPs. The concept is Google thinks these are pretty much your keyword, or these are really close to your keyword, and right. So we're doing an evaluation on the variations as well because those are two separate things. Now,
so here's what I wanted to ask you about that. So,
sure.
Is this all based on your research, or are you making some guesswork here?
No, this is all research based. When looking at, like, say, the variations as that example, have you ever seen a SERP where you type in, let's say, dog lovers, or and all the results say pet friends? It's like it's really close, but not quite to what you actually were searching for. But they're clearly not optimizing for that term. That's why that happens. Google is seeing those terms as so closely related that it will show pages that it feels that are properly optimized, even for what looks like a different term, but it's just a variation. That's why the variations are an important thing to look at. So you've got your top level phrase that you're optimizing for, and then you're getting a whole set of variations, those other words that are similar to yours, and the usage of those is important.
And is it your contention that you should be using a main keyword, like in this case, the exact match table pads is what we want to rank for? And then in certain places on the page, you should be also using the variations?
That's correct. So often, and this example, it didn't quite happen, but I would probably consider it because, again, keep in mind it's a tool and it's just crunching things, and you're a human being. Have some common sense. If I used table pads as my exact match, I would also count that as one variation usage as well.
I see. Okay. So basically, your tool is going to go through and it's going to recommend, based on your research, that proves that doing this is going to rank better.
Mm-hmm.
That's question mark. Yes. Okay, good. Just want to confirm that.
Yeah.
You should be putting your exact match in certain places here, but you should also be putting your variations in certain places here. Correct. And your tool is going to tell us exactly how to do that.
That's right. So
wow,
the things that it's pulling out are the things that we've tested and that we know are the strongest signals, are the ones that at least move the needle somewhat. So obviously an italic word is not as strong as an H1, but it will move the needle a little bit. When you do it in a test environment, you can index pages based on italic keywords. You can actually get movement up doing them against pages that don't have italic terms. So although it's super weak, it is in there, and it's one of the ones that we know move the needle. So that's what we're pulling out. This is like a big difference, I guess, between what I'm doing here in Quora, and this cannot replace Quora in the 520 some odd things that it's crunching. We're crunching specific things that I know that we've tested, and we know these move the needle. That's what we're pulling out here.
Right.
And that's what you're saying.
I just want to say, for those who don't know what Quora is, email me. we need to talk. If you've never heard of Quora, we need to talk. Email me at joshbachynski@gmail.com. But when you say bold and italic here, do you mean the B tag or like the strong tag?
I mean the B. Personally, I would use the strong because we've, as you know, Josh, we've tested that in SIA, and strong actually gives you an edge. But this is just looking at the B because that's the predominantly used one.
Really? Okay. And for italic, same question. Is it just the I?
It's the I. And actually, what's interesting in testing that one, the EM doesn't give you an edge. The edge actually only comes from strong versus bold.
Interesting. So it's just the I tag.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating because here's a little bit of HTML nerdery that only two other people are going to enjoy, but I'm going to say it anyway. So the strong tag and the EM tag, the emphasis tag, those are logical character formatters from the original HTML1 spec. And the I tag and the B tag are actually format character operators, which are changing the actual style of the element that are in a much later HTML spec. I'm quite surprised that Google, being the nerds like I am, they didn't give the boost to the logical character formatters, because H1 to H4 is a logical character formatter as well.
So
right, even though it's moving size, it's denoting important.
Exactly, it's a logical. It's denoting the logical. The logic of this is a heading. There's a subheading. You know, that's what they mean by dressing up the data.
Sorry, Clint, you got cut off.
And I was going to say, it was what spurred that let's test between bold and strong was Google developer guidelines. They set out those, and they specifically said in the developer guidelines to use strong when you're emphasizing a word, like table pads, and then use B when you want to use for the actual bolding of a word for the stylistic looks of it. So that's what kind of spurred that test on to see why would they tell you that. And that's where we figured out that strong was actually giving us a boost.
You also see it in the W3C school definition, where it says bold. The B is just to make it pretty, you know, to make it look better. But the the strong, excuse me, is when you've got something important to say,
right?
Even though it looks the same.
When it first came out with strong, everyone was telling everyone to switch it over to strong by default, which is what WordPress did. So now you have to go back inside of your WordPress and switch that over manually from strong to bold to get the same effect.
And that's such a weird counterintuitive result that I'm sure they used machine learning and thought it just so happened that the web pages that were using B and I instead of strong and emphasized just had better results for them. And so that's why they went with it, even though it makes no human sense. It makes machine learning sense. And I'm guessing that's probably the reason why that is.
I would guess.
Anyway, never mind. That was a sub-tangent. Okay, so we've got our keyword here. We've got our variations we should be using in some way here. Now, walk us through here how this works here.
Sure. So looking at the variation side and looking at the meta title, what that's pulling out is on the competitors that you chose. So they're not chosen at random. This isn't looking at, again, with core where it's just pulling the whole results. These are the competitors that you want to compare against. So you think that these people are ranking well because of their on-page is really what should be in your mindset. That's why you choose those competitors. The target minimum, that's the low end of your competitors, is at 7 usages of your variations in the meta title. The top is the 14. You're currently at 6 for the page you put in, so the suggestion is bump it up by at least 1 to move into that range. Because something else that we've learned here is that when it comes to nearly all these on-page signals, and we'll talk about the one that isn't later, but nearly all of these, you want parity is the goal. You want to get into that range that Google is rewarding. That's what's hiding in plain sight, is what the range of usage that Google is rewarding is hiding in plain sight, and that's what we're pulling out for you.
So like the theory of gravity is relative, so too are the theory of keywords. You don't want to have, there's no Platonic form of keywords floating in the ether that you must have 4.2 keywords in your title. It's all relative to what everyone else has, right?
Because the concept is that Google, when it looks at a particular keyword or particular niche, it says, okay, this is the content that I'm expecting for this keyword that is good content. If it's good content, we know it's going to hit within these parameters, and that's how they crunch it. So that's why it changes keyword to keyword, and that's why for your top level keywords, you want to make these analysis runs each time.
And I just want to confirm that, because this was news to me, I hadn't realized you'd gone this far in your testing, that you've tested relative values of meta title and H1 and all these different things and realized that it's a relative number, not just for keyword density, as we already knew, but for all of these different placements for keywords.
That's right. So that comes from the testing where I found that there isn't an SEO currency. Let's say you want, let's say for some reason you can't get an H1 on the page, we're like, oh, I'll just make it up with H2s. Turns out you can't do that. Each signal is measured independently and valued independently, such that you know, if your competitors have H4s on the page, and that's what's clearly driving their rank, the client can't be like, well, we'll just make it up with image alts. You know, you can't trade one currency for another or one signal for another, each of those has to be measured and tuned individually.
Wow. So I can't believe it. You need a check mark in each box, but you need a check mark in each of these boxes. You check mark here, here, here. You have to have the right stuff comparatively in here relative to your competitors.
But here's the biggest move that I had in the latter part of last year is that the fallacy that people fall into is they look at a page and say, oh, this page is over optimized, or this page is under optimized. And the problem is that a page can be over optimized and under optimized at the same time. So if they look at the page in total and say this is over optimized and they start reducing things everywhere, they might get some of those signals that were over optimized down, but now they took those ones that were correct and dropped them into under.
Well,
vice
mine
versa.
equals blown.
Vice versa. Oh, this page is under optimized, so they start adding things, and so they might get some of those signals that were under into the right range, but they took those ones that were correct and bumped them into over optimized. This is how people get stuck on page 2, and they're like, we keep adding keywords and we're not moving, or we keep subtracting. Well, where are you subtracting them from, or where are you adding them from? Are you looking at these signals independently, or are you just throwing things willy-nilly? And if you're throwing things willy-nilly, that's how you get stuck. Now here's the bigger head trip. Because we've got the variations and the exact match separate, you can have one signal that is both over-optimized and under-optimized at the same time. And we see that a lot with long tail, like 3 and 4 word phrases. You probably don't need that 4-word phrase in your body. You probably don't. You can crunch it, you can see it, or maybe you need it just one time. So you might have that long tail keyword phrase in the body 4 times. You're like, I only have it 4 times and it's a keyword density of 0.5, but you really need it at 0 times. So it's actually over optimized, but you have all these variations that pop out and you find that they're actually under on those variations. So they're over on the exact match usage of a long tail keyword or phrase, but they're way under on their variations. That happens a lot.
Wow. Okay, that's nuts. It just blows my mind that, and again, just to confirm for everyone who may not have been paying attention, you have proven all this and you've confirmed all this through empirical tests.
Yeah, this is the sum total of all the tests that I run every month.
By tweaking a tag and seeing if your garbage keyword goes up or down, and you tweak it again, it goes up or down, and you realize, wow, this all has to be relative to each other.
Right. The biggest thing was actually all the tests we ran about 4 or 5 months ago, trying to beat signals with other signals, and it's almost impossible to do. Okay,
crazy. Okay, so let's keep going through this thing. So basically, what does this person have to do here based on what you see here? What does this person have to do?
So when, like, say for the meta title, it'd be increased by at least 1, but you may want to increase a little bit more because you'll notice that, and when we round to the nearest whole number on the exact match, so on the variation side, you're looking at increase by 1 or 2. On the exact match side, you're probably good.
So they would have to go in their meta title and actually put the word table pad or
no, like
table?
Pad or table separately, or table pad as a thing.
So the meta title should now be, wow, table pads, or the best 2018 table pads. Get a pad for your table today. That's how.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Okay, and that would be good marketing language too. Just don't forget to do that to get someone to click on it.
That's another thing too. I've realized when you do well with the variations, you end up with good copy. It's when you get stuck with the exact match where you end up with that garbage SEO copy. But really often people are often under. Excuse me, they're over on the exact match. They don't need to use it as many times. It's the variations where they're under.
Well, okay, everyone watching this, don't tell anyone else what we're talking about. We need to keep this as secret as possible for as long as possible. Because now I realize what Google has done to beat keyword spammers, to beat white hat SEOs, essentially. They've made it complex enough that not only do you need an exact match keyword, you need a partial match keyword in certain places, in certain tags on your page to have the best signal. That is just insane. So
I think that'll actually answer a lot of questions for people when they're like, how is this page ranking for this particular keyword when it never has it on the page?
Mm-hmm.
It's because they've nailed it correctly with those variations. They probably didn't need that exact match keyword on the page.
And everyone else over-optimized on the exact match keyword.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Okay, so for their H1, these guys need to increase the number of variations of the by 4. So they need to put pad and table, or table and pad, or table pad in there, and they need to leave the table pads because it's good as is.
Right, but you can notice that they're getting pretty close to the line there because it's at 1.75. So again, be a human being and consider like maybe we need it one more time, especially if you're looking at the 1, 2, and 3 results and they all have 2, for example.
Okay, is this a mistake though? I'm confused. It says by 4 here, but it says 1.75 here.
So on the left-hand side is your variations, and on your right-hand side are the exact. Right. So the right-hand side is using table pads exactly. On the left-hand side would be using things like pad and table, and in this case, table pad in the singular.
I see. So you already have 3. You need to increase it to 4, not by 4.
No, because the target minimum is 7.
Oh, I see. The target minimum is 7. Oh, okay. I get it. Okay. See, this is why Kyle's here to explain it to Josh, who can't figure it out.
You're not the only one.
Yeah. Okay. So then H2s, the target minimum is 0. Target max is 3. They're at 0.
So we would say increase by 1. Get it in there.
Just put an H2 in there.
Now that's another important point. This is a huge point. So number 9, where it says the target maximum is 3, that doesn't mean using 3 H2s. That means the cumulative usage of the variations within all the H2 tags. They could have 7 H2s on the page, but we're only using those variations 3 times.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah, they can have a bunch of other H2 tags that don't have the keywords or the variations in them.
Right. So actually, that's something that I'm coming out hopefully next week. It might be a 2-week kind of thing, but we're working on the script right now to actually give a guideline for this is what your competitors have. They have an average of this many H2s. They have an average of this many image alts or images on the page. They have an average of this many videos on the page to actually show what those averages look like. So you can say like, okay, you know, the average is about 5 H2s and we need 3 variations. So we know we need to get those variations in 3 of those and we need 2 extra ones, that kind of thing, to kind of help you structure your page a little bit better.
And you want to be on average or slightly better than on par?
I think parity is still what you want in just kind of general signal location.
I see. Parity in general signal location, but overall keyword density, we want to be slightly higher.
Well, that's where in paragraph text number 14, so that signal is just looking at what is it within the P tags on the page.
Yeah.
On the right-hand side on exact, this is where we crunch the number that we've tested for optimal optimization. So all the other numbers that you see are looking to get you to parity. That number is actually our algorithm or our computation to get you the edge. That's the one spot where you can get an edge by doing more, for sure.
Yeah, this spot right here.
And that edge, right, so 14 F and G. Excuse me, F, the target. So what that number comes from is taking the average of your competitors, so the ones you put in, figuring the standard deviation, and then multiplying the standard deviation by 1.5 and adding that back to the average. That number gives you the edge.
I see.
But it's a really thin point because 2x the standard deviation is where you hit over optimization almost every time. So you want to do that maybe 1 to 1.5x, so don't go above that number. So like in this situation it says 18.4, I would never round that to 19. On the safe side I might be at 17.
Right. Right. Okay.
But that is the one area where you can get an edge by doing more.
Right. So basically we could say we want parity for these. Mm-hmm. And we want slightly over for this one. And we want parity
for the rest.
Parity for the rest. And word count as well?
Yeah, I try to get within a 10% above or 10% below is kind of what I tell my clients. Another feature that's coming out, though, is let's say you're in that situation where you're stuck. You know, the tool says your competitors are at 1,000 and you've got that asshole client that is just stuck on 500 and refuses to add any more. Then I'm going to actually switch over to a keyword density calculation on all those signals and reduce down the usage based on keyword density. So it's going to take these numbers, assuming an optimal number of whatever the average is for keywords, and then reduce down each signal. So like if you're in that situation where you simply can't get the content on the page that you need, whether high or low, the tool will then give you those numbers on what you might want to adjust to.
Okay, fantastic.
So let's get to the ones that are confusing, the H2 to H3, H2 to H6, H4 to H6. So the reason that I've got these clustered like this is because we're rounding. You know, we're rounding numbers. So let's say the H2, H3, and H4 were all at 0.6. The tool is going to recommend 1 for each of those. When you cumulatively add that together, you ended up at 1.8, but the tool gave you 3. So the idea of looking at them as a whole is just to kind of balance that rounding issue, where you might be nailing it on exactly what the tool says because of rounding, but when you look at it cumulatively, you're probably a little bit over or a little bit under because of rounding issues.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand. You're gonna have to run that by me again.
So again, so the tool gives the suggestion of 0.6. Say the average comes out at 0.6, or where you need to be is 0.6. The tool is going to round up to 1 is what's going to happen.
0.6 of what?
Let's say the H2s all came out at 0.6.
Okay.
The tool is going to round up to 1.
Yes.
So if it was 0.6 for H2s, H3s, H4s, the tool is giving you a total usage of 3. But the actual usage was 1.8, 0.6 times 3.
Yes.
So it's possible that you're actually over-optimized simply because of rounding.
In your H2s to H6s.
Exactly, across that cluster. So what this does is this kind of just gives you a check that lets you look at, because of rounding, are we still within the range we should be?
I see. So is this is based on because you're making up for the rounding that goes on other here in the tool, or this is because you found that even in the spread?
It's the rounding in the tool, because the tool will round to the nearest whole number. So when you look at it in totality for, say, across your H signals, it's possible that you could be actually off by a few because of rounding up or down. So this just kind of gives a spot check. It's difficult to explain, and we've been kicking around taking it out of the tool, but I think it's so valuable because you need the perspective.
Right. Yeah. So basically, as a general rule of thumb for this tool, and this is a question, not a statement, but it seems to me you're saying, okay, for these ones that we need parity on, you want to be in the average, but definitely not slightly over would be okay, but not nowhere near the target max.
Yeah, I shoot for about the middle. Is about where I'm
the middle, or 1 if it was 0.
The middle of the min and the max.
Right. And for the paragraph text, this is one that you are doing the calculation that you want to be exactly this or maybe slightly less.
That's correct. On the exact match side only, though.
Right. And for italics, so I noticed no one here is using the I tag of the examples that I provided, which is not surprising because how many people use the I tag? I didn't think anybody did. So you said to leave it as is. Wouldn't it give a boost to make one italicized keyword? I
don't think so. I think that's where I think, well, so let me rephrase. I think using it one time is fine, sure. But I don't know that it gives you enough of an edge to risk the over-optimization in that situation.
Okay. So you found over-optimization in a lot of places in a lot of different ways. And so it's a very difficult gamut of putting in the right tags, but then making sure you don't over-optimize. Or to say the same thing another way, if all your competitors have it, well, then you probably should have it at the minimum, at least.
Right.
But if none of your competitors have it, then that industry doesn't have an I tag, and you might look over-optimized.
The only places where I suggest using one where the industry average comes out at 0 is in your meta title and your H1 and the URL. But I mean, so in those situations, it only makes sense to have your key target phrase in the H tags, in your H1 and in your meta title. Where you see that is sometimes you come across a SERP that's just completely unoptimized. Nobody is optimizing for the term you're going after. In that situation, I would recommend using it in those 2 spots, even if the tool comes back at 0. But with all the other signals, if the tool comes back at 0, I'm recommending 0.
Good. So that's a good risk mitigation strategy to put in there. I hope people understood that. Who are going to try your tool and using it, and they're going to behave in that way. Also, as an interesting kind of side note, I notice a lot of different SERPs these days where they're not optimized at all, or no one seems to be optimizing for anything. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is just carte blanche for an SEO who knows how to do on-page SEO, or even better, maybe has access to this tool, can start really crushing it with this. This is fantastic. Thanks, Kyle. That was unbelievable. The testing you've done, unbelievable. The tool you provided, it's unbelievable. It's free right now as a demo, so go ahead and
enjoy.
Try it.
You might find, if you find, I'm sure there are bugs, you know, or I'm sure like, hey, I looked at this and the counting's wrong. I'm sure that exists. So, you know, don't, well, the tool says this, so I'm just doing it blindly. No, use some common sense, look at it, balance it. If you see something that looks weird, contact me. Today we added in one more signal, and that is body and header HTML tags. So instead of just looking at what's inside the P tags, it just looks everything that's inside the body and in the header. Two reasons. Reason one is sometimes you'll have a web page that doesn't have any P tags on it. They've put the content up in a way that's just outside of paragraph text. So this gives a way to actually capture that. So you give a way to evaluate the page. But the other thing is people might be getting an edge from scripts, from OG tags, from schema markup, HTML tags that they've named. So it's actually going to capture all that. It doesn't go into the page scoring, but it gives you a number to look at. So you can see, like, I've seen pages that are ranking extremely well because of their comment section. And that comment section is spitting out all kinds of HTML that Google's clearly considering. That signal then will kind of then capture that and give you a look at it, like, how are these guys ranking when they have apparently nothing on the page, and you can see all the HTML that they've got going on.
Right, yeah. That's the other thing that John Mueller swore up and down, that he was pretty sure that they were only using the document object model content that came back, but we're finding now that they're reading the HTML and picking out keywords in the HTML, and that's being used as a signal. So
yeah, so just in case, like a named class, you know, you named your H1 or you gave it an ID that was your keyword.
Called it table pads.
Right, exactly. Which could be harmless. I mean, you could have been doing that harmlessly because you got different products and you wanted them to display differently, but more than likely that's a spam thing. But anyway, yes. Whether it was used nefariously or innocently, we're capturing that. Oh, the other thing too, if you slide over, there's a page score that's kind of useful to benchmark for clients. It's color coded and gives a score because, as I've said 1,000 times, I think clients are dumb and they need to see pretty colors and all that. So, you know, the tool, like I said, only takes 30 seconds to run. This is the kind of thing that I think might be beneficial to walk into with a prospective client meeting. You know, when they're like, hey, which are your target phrase, your target URLs and target keywords, and you can come back and the score is not going to be too hot. And the score, what I've done is it's based on the variations and exact match. It weights heavier on the exact match and weights heavier on the more important signals, such as your H1s and your metas, that sort of thing. So if you do those better, you're going to get a higher score.
Yeah, the title, URL, H1, these are
It's almost actually in that order, except for the body. but that's how the math kind of gets worked out to come out with that page score.
Yeah, and that correlates with your testing and my testing as well, for the few of the on-page ones that I've been able to test too and confirm your tests. So that's fantastic, Kyle. I want to move on to some of the questions now. I saw some stuff here in the chat going on that I definitely want to address before we close for today. First off, Shayolep, I don't know how to pronounce that. I just want to say this right off the bat. This person says, John, they're speaking of John Mueller, made it seem like it didn't matter if it was an H1 or H4, and they said, how disingenuous and unhelpful. One, anyone watching this Hangout, do not go to John Mueller and say, Josh Bachynski said on this Hangout here, and Kyle made a test, and they proved it with... You'll be ruining it for everyone. John will immediately mess with all my tests and mess with all of Kyle's tests, and you will be a huge douche. So unless you like being a douche, unless you like being that guy, don't go to him and ask him these questions. Keep in mind, John has to keep his job. And John is not an engineer. John is on the Webmaster Trends Analyst team. He does not know intimately how it works. He only knows what the engineers decide to tell him to test. Even all the engineers don't know how it works. They're running 2 experiments a day, and there are thousands of engineers on the search side team. So you ask a question of Matt Cutts. He didn't even know it. He had to go back and ask the engineers. And you ask Paul Haar, who's an engineer. He doesn't know. He has to sometimes go and ask somebody else. So one, don't ask them detailed questions like this. 2, Remember, he's got to keep his job, so he can't always tell you the truth. 3, remember, this is just our testing. We are just a few guys with some spare time to do this testing. Now, Kyle, your testing is fantastic, and it's very extensive, and I think you've proven a lot of this conclusively, but we can be wrong. I mean, their artificial intelligence can be complex enough and can be smart enough that we can show how it works 80% of the time, but they have some weird rules that rewrite things when they didn't like some result they got. Because that's how Google works, is they patch upon a patch upon a patch upon a patch on another patch and another patch. And that's how they have to be very careful, because their algorithm can get away from them with all these patches. Any piece of software you patch like 100 times a year can have problems. And so that's why they have a very good version control system and do all that testing. So keep in mind that you have to use some common sense, and that what we found here, our testing shows it is more or less correct, but there could be exceptions that we never ran into. Would you agree, Kyle?
For sure. I mean, it's a complex thing. I will say, though, like, to say that an H4 versus an H1 doesn't matter is a really difficult one to swallow.
Right.
Like, really difficult.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I would side with your testing. That's why all of my longtime viewers have seen my annoying lecture on evidence and the quality of evidence, and your empirical experiments beats out John Mueller's rumor, even though he works at Google. If an angel came down from heaven and whispered in your ear that E equals MC to the third, that doesn't make it true until you go and test it and you find out, no, Angel, you were wrong. Sorry, I don't know, maybe I was high, whatever happened. John Mueller doesn't always necessarily speak the truth a priori. It has to be tested. And I would, Kyle, sir, I would go through tests any day over anything that Google does.
He's not lying. He's just telling you from his perspective.
Exactly. And his perspective is always, don't worry about it, because it's really hard to do. Like Kyle has just shown, it's really hard to do and test. He's just saying, don't worry about it. I can't tell you anyway. Just focus on quality, make the best site possible. That's probably, in the realm of what he's allowed to say, that's probably, honestly, the best advice he can give, right? Is to make the best quality site, convert as much as you can. You know, that's more or less, and then he can help with indexing and crawling. That's really all he's allowed to do. Okay.
Let's just. I'm sorry. I'm going to interject here. I'm just going to let everyone know the real truth about this whole thing.
Okay.
And that is Kyle Roof is the second cousin of John Mueller, and John just feeds Kyle stuff under the stuff, and Kyle just puts this spreadsheet stuff together, makes it look super fancy. But honestly, just John spoon feeds Kyle all this great information, and Kyle just puts it in the spreadsheet.
It's actually the hardest part of my day is to make the spreadsheets look random enough to be real.
Right.
That's amazing work.
And actually, Kyle's not in Milan right now. He's actually in Switzerland. He's north a little bit.
Switzerland.
That's John Mueller's going to come walking through that door behind you any second.
Exactly.
He'll be like, "Oh,
I'm sorry.
I told you after the show."
We're just joking, folks. Eric is just joking. He's known to be a trickster. He's kind of like Loki out of Norse mythology. If you invite him to a conference where he's competing, he's going to bring out a child who has leukemia, and he's going to win the whole thing. No, it was a real child, and it was a real good move, and there was no rules. He's black hat. There's no rules, so I admit it. Okay, so let's get to the questions here. Nathan Hammond asks, has anyone done any single variable testing on secondary or tabbed content? Have you ever done any testing on tabbed content, like hidden content? You have to press a tab to see it.
Yeah, all that gets read by Google. And then I even tested on whether, does it get devalued, and I couldn't see any devaluation. I had a lot of fun, too, doing, CSS stuff where cool sliders, you click and then the whole, it looks like a whole other page slides over. All that gets indexed and read and considered, so.
Sweet. Yes. So depending on how you do your CSS, it might not, but your testing says yes. So that provides some very interesting possibilities if you want to make sure you have the on-page set up the way your tool does, but you don't want to change the look of the page. You just have it all off on its side, and you press it, it comes over. You can see it, like a data sheet almost. That would be kind of cool, actually, a cool way of doing it.
I think the thing you only just want to keep in mind is that as long as you're doing it as a design choice, so you're not making an arrow the size of a pixel, and you click on that and then get over there. You actually have the page built so that people would be encouraged to click over and see that content. Then I think you'd get past any manual review.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm just looking through here to see if we have any more questions. People have asking about Quora. Yes, email me. I'll tell you about Quora. It is fantastic. Shilep put the URL for your beta test in here. I guess it was hvseo.co, page optimizer beta exact match. I could put that in the description as well.
Yeah, that's the one.
I should probably put that in the description here.
I really didn't brand that well at all, but I wanted I wanted to make people earn it.
Yes, you don't want it to get too popular.
Could have been worse. You could have used one of your testing domains.
That would have been awesome. It's like 15 random letters in a row.
Okay, I'm saving that. Now let's go back here to the questions. If you have any more, does anyone in the chat here have any questions? Who's on live? Eric, Keith, Rudy?
Yeah, Kyle, can you start from the beginning? I missed a little bit.
No.
And we're actually not recording this, so it was just a one-time thing.
Yeah, sorry, we're not recording this. It was
not at all.
thing. No, this is definitely being recorded. People can watch it later. If it gets too popular, though, I might delete it. I don't want people finding out about this.
I just sent out a news release.
Oh, great.
Perfect.
I was thinking this would be really cool. Do you think there's any way, Kyle, you could fit this into a WordPress plugin so it works automatically?
That is the thought down the road if I can get my $1 per use. that would fund the plugin.
Now buy the product, and maybe we'll go ahead and use that to develop a better solution for you.
Exactly. That's how it works.
Now. MVP, baby. MVP.
My SEO charity only goes so far.
Yes.
It just goes to the top of Google.
Does anyone else have any questions? Keith?
Keith was saying something.
Keith, you sound like you're the man from underwater. We can't understand you. Do you eat hard-boiled eggs? Did you recently make love with a mute woman? Did you win the Oscar?
Damn. Why you got to bring my wife into this, man? What does a mute woman have to do with this?
You can send all your complaints to Josh at Josh Bachynski.
Yes.
Keith, type it in.
I was completely responsible for that movie. I am actually Guillermo del Toro in disguise.
This is a good question from Alex in the chat. Are you checking the desktop search results or the mobile search results?
This is all desktop, so that's what the script is pulling up. That's a great question. That would be certainly something to look into. Actually, what I think would be a better check would be run the desktop and then just ping to see if all the content and HTML is in the mobile version. Because then you know you've got a problem. Optimize this because this is what's winning, but then double check that you've got all that in the mobile.
For sure.
Kyle just said, Keith, just said in the chat that he had a 20% lift using Kyle's new tool. That's cool. That's good to have those kinds of testimonials. Flexing your SEO muscles. Digital Exhale says in the chat, it's a newbie question. That's okay. How much does a client's WordPress site affect the results versus a traditional built site?
Either is fine. This has no impact on the platform that they're using at all.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's all HTML. So, but it does mean you need to know how to edit various HTML components, which sometimes can be hard in WordPress if you don't know what you're doing.
And vice versa. Putting a static page together can be a real pain in the ass when you want to move something over this much. Yeah. and you can't figure out if it's padding or whatever.
Yeah, that's why I avoid it like the plague. I know what I have the patience for, and making HTML sites, pure HTML sites, is not one of those things.
I just send everything to my designers. Just say, go do it. This is what I want. Do it, and they get it wrong 5 times, and then finally they get it right, and then it's good. Okay, folks. Well, thanks very much. Let's end the show with the final segment is random facts about people on the show. Random facts about people on the show. I'll start off. Random fact about myself. This picture here is a Peter Lick. I bought it in Vegas when I was drunk, and it cost around $5,000 US. That's a random fact. Wow. What's a random fact? So don't go picture shopping when you're drunk in Vegas, because you'll waste your money. I mean, it's a beautiful picture and all, but I don't know if I need to spend that money on that. What's a random fact from you guys there? Clint, you want to start us off?
Getting rid of the black whiteboard and switching over to the white one. I found that it was easier. The white's easier to see.
Oh, cool. I like that. E-Rock, what's a random fact from you?
I like to steal valuable art.
Did I see you lurking in my bushes last night?
No, that was my hired crew. They're going to be
card or something.
If your painting mysteriously disappears in a couple days, please don't get upset with me.
No, you can't have the picture. You can't have it.
Right.
Do you
want a real random fact, or should I just be funny?
Sorry, what was that?
I can give a real fact if you want.
Yeah, let's get a real fact going on here.
Oh, I dropped out of school and went back to college and got a 4.0 degree, which I spent tens of thousands of dollars to get and no longer use.
I got 3.
There you go. That's similar fact to many people, I think. But let me ask you this. Do you think that just the raw work of getting a degree, do you think it helped mentally sharpen you, even if you never use any of those particular skills?
I think so this goes into this philosophical question of like the value of higher education. So if you're a doctor or a lawyer or architect, then you definitely should go to vocational school and become a master of your craft. Do I think that spending tens of thousands of dollars and going into debt to be able to get an education that you're not going to get value of, I'm going to say no. I think the biggest value of college is probably the network opportunities that you'll hopefully get. So hopefully, like when my daughter, who's going to turn 13 in a couple months, I'm basically already teaching her, start putting everybody you ever meet into a database in your phone so that you can use that and build your database forever. Because honestly,
you're going to be a sleazy salesman right away.
Never.
Are you implying my daughter would be ever sleazy? Like, man, I'm like Josh, the fascist.
No. Okay, no. I meant salesperson. Not any other kind of sleaze. I mean, whatever. I'm not slut shaming anybody. I'm a left coast brother. Whatever.
I'm gonna just type up a quick news release now.
Josh Bachynski is that asshole everyone thinks he is. Trey actually had a serious question here for you, Kyle. He says, "What does anchor text row mean? Inbound AT or text of outbound AT on the page?"
It's on the page, so it could be an internal link, it could be an external link, but it's hypertext links, hypertext text, on the page.
Right. So that's the actual anchor text in between the A tags.
That's right. That's physically sitting on the page. It could be going to an internal page within the site, or it could be going external.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank guys. That's been White Hat versus Black Hat SEO show. I'd like to thank our host, Clint Butler, E-Rock for showing up, Keith for showing up, Kyle for showing up, and also Rudy for showing up, even though Rudy didn't get to say anything. Rudy, do you want to say something before we close this off, or you just want to hang out?
Rudy. Hello.
Hi, Rudy. How are you?
Nothing to say. Actually, one question is, where's the replay link on this? Because I missed the beginning, and I'm really interested in Kyle's work there.
Sure. Just go to YouTube, and as soon as you can just move the slider back and press play, and I think that should work.
Yeah, as soon as YouTube processes it, it'll be right there on Josh's channel.
As soon as YouTube processes it, and my giant ego makes the processing time slower, takes a while to churn through that, but after it does, you'll be able to watch it.
Okay, perfect.
So thanks very much, everyone, for watching. Thank you for asking questions in the chat. And join us next week for more SEO goodies, the kind of which you can never find anywhere else. And do not tell Google about this tool or go asking Google about.
Please don't.
Do H1s really better than H4s? You're not going to get the answer you want anyway. John Mueller can't tell you if he even knew, which he probably doesn't. So that's been White Hat versus Black Hat. And as I always say, good luck on the SERPs, guys. Bye-bye.